June 13th, 1981. It's the Queen's official birthday celebration, the Trooping the Colour ceremony. Thousands line the streets of London. The Queen, sitting confidently on her horse, Burmese, rides down the Mall toward Buckingham Palace. The crowd roars with applause. Everything seems perfect. Then, at 10:55 a.m., 6 shots ring out. The crowd screams, panic erupts, but the Queen, she doesn't flinch. Her horse rears up in terror, but Elizabeth calmly controls it, patting its neck to keep it steady. The gunman was 17-year-old Marcus Sargent, standing just feet away from Her Majesty, armed with a revolver. But here's the twist that saved her life.
The gun was loaded with blank cartridges. Sargent later confessed he fired blanks because he didn't actually want to kill her. He just wanted to be famous. He was tackled immediately by police and guards. The teenager was sentenced to 5 years in prison under the 1842 Treason Act. But imagine the courage it took for the Queen to continue the ceremony as if nothing happened. That's exactly what she did. July 9th, 1982, 7:15 a.m. Buckingham Palace, the most secure building in Britain. Or so everyone thought. The Queen wakes up to find a strange man sitting on her bed, dripping blood from a broken ashtray he's holding. His name was Michael Fagan, a 33-year-old unemployed decorator who had somehow climbed over the palace walls, scaled a drain pipe, and wandered through the corridors, completely undetected.
He had even triggered multiple alarms, but security assumed they were malfunctioning. The Queen, remarkably calm, didn't scream, she didn't panic. Instead, she talked to him. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Fagan rambled about his personal problems while the Queen edged toward the door. She pressed the panic button twice. No one came. Finally, she called the palace switchboard, asking for police, saying, "There's an intruder in my bedroom. Could you send someone in the most British way possible?" A maid eventually arrived, and Fagan was arrested. The security failure was so catastrophic that it led to a complete overhaul of palace security. But for 10 terrifying minutes, the Queen of England was alone with an unstable stranger in her bedroom, and she kept her composure the entire time.
March 1983. The Queen is on a state visit to the United States, scheduled to visit San Francisco. What she doesn't know is that the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, has planted a bomb along her motorcade route. The explosive device is hidden in a drainage system beneath the Golden Gate Bridge, set to detonate as the royal convoy passes above. But British and American intelligence agencies had been tracking the plot for weeks. MI5 and the FBI worked together in secret, and just hours before the Queen's arrival, they located and defused the bomb.
The public never knew. The Queen never knew. At least not until much later. The trip continued without incident. No headlines, no panic, no drama. The assassination attempt was kept classified for years to avoid causing international panic and to protect ongoing intelligence operations. This wasn't just a random attack, it was a coordinated terrorist plot against the British monarch on American soil, and it came within hours of succeeding. The IRA had been responsible for numerous attacks throughout the 1970s and 80s, and the Queen was always a high-value target. This attempt in San Francisco was one of their closest calls. October 14th, 1981. The Queen is visiting New Zealand, riding in an open-top car through the streets of Dunedin. Thousands wave flags and cheer. Up on the 5th floor of a nearby building, 17-year-old Christopher John Lewis aims a .22 rifle directly at her. He's chosen his position carefully, with a clear line of sight to the royal motorcade. He fires. The shot misses, but only barely. The bullet strikes a window near the Queen's vehicle. In the chaos and noise of the crowd, most people don't even hear the gunshot. Police hear it, but think it's a firecracker.
The Queen's car continues on, completely unaware. Louis escapes the building and disappears into the crowd. It took police days to piece together what happened. When they finally arrested Louis, they found disturbing evidence. Detailed plans, surveillance notes, and a clear intention to assassinate the monarch. But here's where it gets even more shocking. The New Zealand government actively covered it up. They didn't want to admit that someone had fired a shot at the Queen on their watch. The incident was classified, and Louis was charged with a minor firearms offense and possession of a weapon, not attempted murder. He served just 3 years. The full truth didn't emerge until decades later.
1970. The Queen is on a royal tour of Australia. Intelligence services receive a chilling tip. There's a plot to kill her by dropping a large object, possibly a concrete block, from a building as she passes below. The information is vague but credible enough to take seriously. Security goes into overdrive. Every building along the royal route is searched. Rooftops are secured. Suspicious individuals are questioned. The investigation reveals that anti-monarchist groups in Australia had been discussing various plots, including this one.
Some wanted to make a political statement. Others had more sinister intentions. The tour continues, but with heavily modified routes. The Queen's schedule is changed at the last minute multiple times to keep potential attackers guessing. Open-air appearances are reduced. The threat was real enough that Australian intelligence treated it as a credible assassination attempt in progress. No one was ever arrested because the constant security changes and route modifications likely deterred whoever was planning the attack. But for weeks during that tour, the Queen was unknowingly moving through a potential kill zone. Every public appearance was a calculated risk. Every open window, a potential threat.
September 1981. The Queen is traveling by royal train through Wales. It's supposed to be a secure, controlled environment. But British Transport Police discovers something terrifying. A man hiding near the railway tracks, armed with a loaded crossbow, positioned where the train would slow down. His name was John Lennon Thompson, and he had been waiting for hours. The crossbow was powerful enough to pierce the train's windows. His position gave him a clear shot as the train reduced speed for a curve. But alert police officers spotted him during a routine security sweep of the route just an hour before the Queen's train was scheduled to pass.
Thompson was arrested on the spot. During questioning, he claimed he wanted to make a statement about Welsh independence. The crossbow was confiscated, and he was charged with firearms offenses and threatening behavior. What makes this attempt particularly chilling is how close he came to having his opportunity. The Queen's train was running slightly ahead of schedule that day. If it had been on time, or if police had been even 30 minutes later in their sweep, Thompson would have had his shot. The medieval weapon in a modern assassination attempt shows just how varied the threats against the Queen were. It wasn't always guns and bombs. Sometimes it was something as simple and deadly as a crossbow. June 1983. The Queen is on a state visit to West Germany. German intelligence intercepts communications from a radical left-wing group called the Revolutionary Cells. They're planning something during the Queen's visit, but the details are unclear. What investigators eventually uncover is chilling: a plot to attack the Queen during a public event using explosives. The group had been conducting surveillance on royal security arrangements for weeks. They had acquired explosive materials and were in the final stages of planning. German police, working with British intelligence, launched a massive covert operation. Dozens of suspects were put under surveillance. Safe houses were raided.
And just 3 days before the planned attack, police arrested 5 members of the group and seized bomb-making materials, detonators, and detailed maps of the Queen's planned route. The plot never reached the execution stage, but investigators concluded it was sophisticated and well-planned. These weren't amateurs. They had military-grade explosives and insider knowledge of security procedures. If the intelligence intercept hadn't happened, this could have been one of the deadliest attacks on a British monarch in history. The incident was kept quiet to avoid diplomatic embarrassment and to protect intelligence sources. The Queen completed her German tour, smiling and waving, never knowing she'd just survived another attempt on her life.
7 times, 7 different methods, 7 different motivations. From teenagers seeking fame to organized terrorist groups. From crossbows to bombs to simply breaking into her bedroom. What's remarkable isn't just that these attempts happened, it's that most people never knew about them. The Queen herself was often kept in the dark about the full extent of the dangers she faced. Security services made a calculated decision. Informing her of every threat would make it impossible for her to do her job. So they handled it quietly, professionally, and most of the time, successfully.
But here's what these 7 attempts tell us. Being the Queen of England made Elizabeth II one of the most targeted individuals on Earth. Anti-monarchists, political extremists, mentally unstable individuals, and terrorist organizations all saw her as a symbol worth attacking. And yet, she never let fear dictate her life. She continued walkabouts, meeting the public face to face. She refused to live in a bunker. She rode horses in public, traveled the world, and maintained a visible presence for 70 years. Every handshake could have been dangerous. Every crowd could have hidden a threat. Every building could have concealed an assassin. And she did it anyway. Queen Elizabeth II died peacefully on September 8, 2022, at the age of 96. Not from an assassin's bullet, not from a bomb or a crossbow or any of the threats that haunted her reign. She died of old age, surrounded by family after serving longer than any British monarch in history. That in itself is remarkable. 7 assassination attempts, countless other threats we'll probably never know about, decades of danger that would have broken most people. And yet she survived it all, maintaining her dignity, her composure, and her commitment to service until the very end.
The teenage gunman who fired blanks? He wanted fame, but got 5 years in prison. Michael Fagan, who broke into her bedroom? He became a footnote in history. The IRA, the terrorists, the plotters with their bombs and crossbows, they all failed. The Queen, however, succeeded. She ruled for 70 years, saw 15 prime ministers, and became the most famous woman in the world. Not because she hid from danger, but because she faced it with the same calm courage she showed when those 6 shots rang out in 1981. That's the real story here. Not just that people tried to kill the Queen, but that she refused to let them change who she was. And that's why, even now, she remains unforgettable.